Let's get back to the conversation. It's a special edition of Politics Today on Channels Television, focusing on the Edo governorship election. We're doing some reappraisal and post-mortem of the exercise as we await the collation and the final results from INEC. We looked at what the police have done, and tonight also we're looking at the exercise in general. Here in our studio, we also have a security expert and a security official, Mr. Bassi is the Assistant Comptroller General of the NSCDC, Edo State. Thank you so much, Mr. Bassi, for coming on tonight. Welcome. And from Abuja studio, I have a panel there. Professor Isaac Obasi is a professor of public administration. He's in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming tonight. Also, we have Mr. Nick Dazang, is the director of voter education and publicity at INEC. And also, we have Ms. Idayat Astan, is the executive director of CDD. Thank you, everyone, for coming on board. And let's get started. Let's give the people of Edo a perspective of how this election all went. We've looked at security. Perhaps, let me go to INEC with Mr. Dazang. I asked Mr. Umar earlier of Nigerian police if they could assess the police. But let me ask you, it's an unfair question to ask because I know you wouldn't assess yourself badly. How would you assess the INEC's performance in this election?
Well, I think instead of assessing INEC, I would like to pay tribute today to all the stakeholders in the process, from INEC staff, permanent and ad hoc, to security agencies, to members of civil society, to the media, to the youths in Edo, to women groups, to persons living with disabilities, to leaders of faith-based organizations, to traditional rulers, particularly the Oba of Benin, who mediated in the lead up to the conduct of election today, the National Peace Committee, led by General Abdul Salam Abubakar, and the convener, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka. Now, all these stakeholders played significant and pivotal roles. And it is these roles, barring the few incidents of violence and the malfunctioning of the smart card reader, that amounted to the huge success that we recorded today. So I would like to say congratulations to all, and that on the part of INEC, we will learn lessons from the conduct of this election and factor the lessons we have learned today in the conduct of subsequent elections.
So if you look at it, it's a very critical question. I've asked the Nigerian police about the COVID-19 protocol. This will come up again because of how important the matter is. So let me ask you also, in the issue of adherence to the COVID-19 protocol, this is INEC's major appearance or major outing in the COVID-19 period. A lot of people were said not to have worn their face mask, and the social distancing issue was another matter. Could INEC have done anything different from what happened today?
Well, before now, in fact, even before the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and the National Center for Disease Control articulated their guidelines, INEC, confronted with the inevitability of end-of-tenure elections, which are circumscribed by law, had to think out a policy of conducting the election within the context of this pandemic. First of all, we have in this country not conducted any election under any pandemic. If you recall that the last pandemic the world saw was in 1918 to 1920, which was when the Spanish flu took place. And by then, no elections had been conducted in Nigeria. So we approached it from that perspective, and we articulated a policy of conducting elections under the context or within the context of this pandemic. And we engage with stakeholders, severally on this, including the security agencies, the civil society organizations, the media, and so on. And we on the part of INEC, we have the challenge of enforcement, enforcing compliance. But otherwise, we meant well by articulating these guidelines, and we did a pilot of these guidelines in the election we conducted in Nasarawa State 4 weeks ago. And we also did a lot of campaigns in the media and the social media, educating Nigerians about the guidelines and the need to carry out this exercise in safety. We have noticed, unfortunately, that in some cases, the voters did not wear face masks. But those footages that I saw just now on channels are not footages of voters on the queue. I think it's a crowd elsewhere where they are jubilating. I don't know over what. But in most of the footages I saw in our situation room, which were provided for us by different sources, including the media, in most cases, the voters wore their face masks. The only thing I noticed was that in some instances, social and physical distancing was not observed. And this had to do with the fact that this occurred in polling units where the voting did not start in time. So the voters were generally restless in those polling units and therefore did not defer to the COVID-19 regulations. But going forward, we will factor this in our voter education in the conduct of Ondo governorship election scheduled for 10th October 2020 and the 15 harmonized by-elections scheduled for 31st October 2020. So we have noted it. We are not happy about it. If we had our way, we would have loved to have 100% compliance, particularly with the COVID-19 regulations, because we want our staff and the voters to be safe, and we don't want to see any infections or a spike in the pandemic. So going forward, we will really intensify voter education about it, and we will do so in conjunction with our supporters in civil society, in the media, amongst development partners. We will not rest until we educate people properly to properly conduct themselves in concert with these regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Dezang. Let me go to Ms. Hassan from the CDD. Give us a sense of your assessment, a general one at that, before we come into details of today's exercise.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I think congratulations, because first and foremost, this elections was conducted, the narrative was framed around possibly violent elections, and fortunately for all of us, we have just seen pockets of violence in like 5 local governments, nothing to write home about. So I say congratulations to every one of us, but the issue of implementation of the INEC policy on COVID-19 remains a challenge that can lead to a spike. Electoral offenses, there were records of electoral offenses. Important also is the rampant vote buying that marked these elections. Then I think lastly is an attempt to actually shape perception such that what was really happening on ground did not really match the reality on social media.
So what do you mean by that, Hidayat?
I think that it's important to point out that it goes beyond fake news. There was so much attempt to really disinform the public, and to skew the narrative. Even when reality happened, maybe like the issue of the card reader malfunctioning, you find out that the way the narrative was played was as if a party is being cheated. It goes again to another allegation of a movement of polling units, which could actually have spiked violence in the state. That never happened. To an hotel, it did not happen. There were several instances of this, and this preceded the election day itself, but played a very active role. I think for us, we monitored more than 25 of such incidences across the two major parties, some doing it outrightly, while some were using proxy to actually put out this kind of information on social media. And what it does is that it delegitimizes the process. It raises unnecessary fear and lifts heightened tempos of what are not necessarily on ground, particularly in other parts of the country and in the Committee of Nations.
Let me go to Professor Isaac Obazi. From your own point of view, you've studied human behavior and as related to public administration and what we saw today with people jostling for public office, such as the #1 seat in Edo State. In terms of the behaviors of voters today and perhaps how these turned out, are you surprised by anything?
Yeah, well, thank you. I would say so far, so good. It's not because my two colleagues here have said so. The overview report I read from 9th correspondent who covered on the 3 territorial districts, confirm this verdict they're giving you. I think people have tried to prove the high level of pre-election apprehension a little bit wrong. So Idia was talking about that this narrative. I think looking back, we can say that we are grateful to God that what we saw did not turn out as people expected it. And like you asked the commissioner, police commissioner Umar, it has gone. It says to be peaceful, orderly, safe. This evening, like you rightly pointed out, that's when some part of that human behavior we were talking about will manifest. So we've had occasions in the past where everybody will say, oh, it went on well, observers, international and local, we commend the election process, only for the narrative to change. What we hear in the next morning is a different thing from what was said. So we do hope the Edo people, let me put it this way, not just hope. We appreciate the conduct generally, on balance, so to say, of Edo, the conduct of Edo people. We notice the pockets of violence here and there, but I think in statistics we are more interested in the average, the mean. So if on balance, what we have is about 85% good expectation, good result, and the other one is not the other bad aspect of people's behavior. We can tolerate and say people of Edo, they have done creditably well.
But what we saw, of course, you mentioned it, that a lot of people had expected that it was going to be hell on earth in terms of what politicians could do and what thugs and violence may happen. But in general, what would you attribute to what has caused maybe the kind of peace that we're seeing in this election as against the kind of violence that we often see at our elections?
Excellent question, Sion. My colleague here, Nick, has pointed it out. Those people he thanked for a job well done, they have influenced the behavior of today, directly and indirectly. You cannot see Edo people, totally disrespecting the Oba Obini. And to take it beyond that, the National Peace Committee also did a wonderful job, what they are used to doing, by making people realize that what's happening in Edo has implications in other places, not just Ondo that is coming very soon. So it is important that we give credit to those who have played important role in shaping the behavior we have today. Believe you me, I know that people looking the other way around, they would have, done more violence than expected. But like the police commissioner said, Umar, really there was good performance by all the joint, forces that really worked together today. But let me say the massive deployment of 31,000 is not the magic. It's not really the magic. We saw it in last election in Kogi. We saw they massively deployed, and when those electoral brigands will come, the security men will look the other way, and they do their havoc and go away. But it seems not to have happened now. Everybody knew that they are being watched very seriously, and I think we can give credit to all of them.
All right. Let me quickly come to Mr. Bassi here, who is the ACG of the NSCDC. What reports do you have as regarding this election? Any reports of violence?
Generally, the elections went on well. There were unverified reports of pockets of violence.
So even the NSCDC has not identified any of sort?
No. We have not. We have received reports that it's not verified now. But until our men came back from where they are, then we will have to know. Then we will have to sift all the reports and then know whether the reports we have heard is true or not.
Give us an understanding of what NSCDC's role was, because I understand that primarily, perhaps your role was to secure assets in this process. Was that the sole thing that NSCDC did?
No, we not only secured assets, we deployed about 4,000 of our personnel to secure critical government assets. But we also deployed about 7,311 of our personnel in polling units. So if you go to all through the states, in all the polling centers, you see officers of civil defense with the police.
Has any of your men made any arrest?
No.
No arrest whatsoever?
Not to my knowledge now, because some of them are in the very interior places. Until all of them will come back to the headquarters, maybe by tomorrow, they will have a good, we can say that there was no arrest.
So in the Riverine area, everything went well, or you've not gotten report from there?
No. It's difficult. Some of the places we cannot access by telecom. So that is the issue. But from the places, all the other areas have been on our men. They have been sending reports via SMS or phone calls. So now we have not had any issue of arrest.
What about vote buying? Did you see vote buying? Did your men see vote buying?
I was on the street. I went to some of the centers. There were subtle evidence of that some people are doing vote buying, but you can never verify things. Because when I went in a center in the Sapele Road, I saw some of them. So when I just approached them, they all left, they all scattered. So maybe they
found a more technical way of handling vote buying. We will assess that and analyze that more. Issues of vote buying, issues of how this election was conducted, the security situation. We get more analysis right here on Channels Television, your home for the news. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone. They say that elections are festivals of democracy. Was that the case in Edo State? We're breaking it down for you to give you a sense of what happened today. Channel Television combed around the 18 local government areas and the 3 senatorial districts of Edo State today. And we're bringing you some of those stories that are very important to you. Part of what you need to see now at some of the sights and sounds of what happened across the land, Edo State today. Take a listen to this report.
It's the first major election amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, and early preparations for the 2020 Edo governorship elections begin with officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission posting out materials at the various polling units. The exercise, scheduled to start at 8 a.m., is however delayed due to the necessary COVID-19 guidelines checks.
But see what we have there. People just enter into the pool, ask and how they like it. Nothing is going on.
With an average turnout across the voting centers, both young and old alike come out for the accreditation process and then cast their votes. But there's some tension at the Amokwai Model Primary School in Oredo local government area between voters and INEC officials, which threatens to spiral out of control. But the situation is soon contained following an intervention by security agencies. The voters, who are mostly seen with their face masks, say it has been a smooth and peaceful process so far.
It's okay, it's not too bad anyway. It's not too bad. What do you make of the environment, the process and everything, sir? Everything has been going smoothly. It's fine.
If you look at the streets, persons have kept generally to stay at home order, and there have been soldiers and policemen at intervals around the total state. So I think the election has been peaceful. The security is okay for now.
It's a different opinion from the election observers, who say that there is no adherence to the COVID-19 safety protocols.
COVID protocols were observed in protests. What am I saying? People were using facial masks, yes, but there was no social distancing like we're observing now. They were all clustered together. Temperatures were not taken, no hand sanitizers, and so it appears that the number of persons were just surging, on the ad hoc staff, yes. So generally, that is what we are observing.
Meanwhile, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Leye Oyibade, is in charge of security at the post, and he rates performance high. Edo residents have cast their votes, and now the wait is on for the Independent National Electoral Commission to complete the process of collation and counting the ballots to find out who has the mandate to run the state's affairs for the next 4 years.
All right, there you have it. Some of the situation around Edo State today. I still have my partner with me right here, Mr. Basi, ACG of NSCDC from Abuja studio, Mr. Nick Dazang of INEC, Idayat Azan of CDD, and Professor Obasi, Public Administration Professor. Thank you so much, gentlemen and lady. Let's take some of these issues one after the other. And it has to do with late arrival of materials and staff of INEC. Mr. Dazang, what happened? Did some of your men, did some of them wake up late today, or what happened? Because some people are reporting that the exercise started late in some areas.
Yes, thank you for that observation. Actually, we had 1 or 2 cases, I think in one of the RAs, the registration areas, where the staff reportedly complained that by the time they were coming out to open the polling units, they had not received their bank advice for the allowances for their training. And that took some time for us to sort out, and I think that explains why there were some delays in that particular registration area. And the polling units were set up late, and the voting therefore commenced late. In fact, as late as around 10 a.m. this morning. So, but these are isolated cases, and like I said, all the challenges we are noting them, and we'll try and address them ahead of the conduct of the Ondo governorship election and subsequent elections.
Have you been able to pay some of them? Because not only in the morning, some people are still angry Have you paid these young men and women of the NYSC?
Sometimes we have challenges for which INEC is not to blame. Some of the ad hoc staff do not give us correct account details, and some of them give us account details belonging to their relations. So there's no way that if you give an account detail that is short of the 10 digits, or the digits are not correctly written, or they belong to some relation or sibling of yours, and then you receive the alert. Instead, he will receive the alert. So we going back to 2019, we had these challenges. But what we do in INEC is that as soon as you are co-opted to work as an ad hoc staff, you are given a letter of appointment, so to speak, which spells out the terms of engagement and the allowances that are going to accrue to you. So you can see that we are as transparent as possible. And the idea is so that even the ad hoc staff can interrogate situations where they are either shortchanged or the monies are not forthcoming. But in these isolated cases, you discover that the ad hoc staff themselves are their own enemies. They don't give us correct account details. They don't give us their own account details in some cases. And therefore, it is not the fault of our account persons if they don't get their advice, because the account persons that work for us will work with the details that you give them. So we always insist ahead of the training and engagement that all our ad hoc staff must give us the correct account details. In the 2019 elections, when I was in the FCT, I had a number of such persons, and it took us time to sort them out. In fact, at a point, they resorted to going to the media to complain. And we now have to take it with the media to say that, look, this is the issue. It's not as if the money is not there. The money is there. We paid. It was returned by the banks because they didn't give correct account details. So it is likely to be the case in this instance because it affected only a few of the ad hoc staff.
So give us a sense of what we should be expecting. Looking at the INEC election result portal, out of 2,627 results, only 1,224 results have been posted on that portal, which is strange because elections, the conduct has been over and people should have posted this result. A lot of Nigerians are wondering when we can start getting when these results from the local government areas will start coming in. But from the information that you have
yes,
right now, Zhang, how many local governments do we have?
Yes, from what you have said, from what you have said, more than half of these results have been uploaded on our portal. And between now and the collation, before the collation is over, we intend that all these results should be uploaded because the idea is, first of all, to increase the transparency measures that were put in place and also to reduce the mistrust between us and Nigerians. Thirdly, we also intend that if people can view the outcome of the conduct of the elections in all the polling units real time, then it doesn't make any case for you to insist that the results can be changed or that you have to waylay our staff on their way to the collation centers. But all the same, in spite of this measure, we are working with the security agencies to secure the collation centers. But as I've said elsewhere, these things are in the open. Apart from the fact that you can view these results electronically, even at the polling units, the Form EC8, that is the result sheet that is entered at the end of the conduct of the election at the polling unit, is also entered in a postal form called Form 60E, which is usually pasted at the polling unit, and any voter who wishes to view can view at the end of the conduct of the election. So these transparency measures have been there since 2011. And the fact that these measures are there and you can view them, then means that nobody can manipulate or alter the outcome of any result at the collation center. And in any case, the candidates and the political parties are entitled to nominate agents to represent them first at the level of the polling unit, then at the level of the collation center at the registration area, and at the level of the local government collation center, and then finally in the instance of a governorship election at the state collation center in the ANEC headquarters. So you have a chain that can be, surveilled or monitored by your agents, and you also have access to the tear-offs of the results from the polling unit to the RA, to the local government, to the state, and you can put them together. And if there are any reservations that you have, you can deploy all these documents and make a case for yourself in court. So this is why we are saying we don't need to go and waylay innocent ad hoc staff who are doing their duty by desperate politicians. It's unnecessary. And in INEC, we find it even ludicrous that people resort to that, because it does not change anything. And the political parties and the candidates have it in their power to monitor the exercise, which is open and transparent. And now we have added the ANEC results portal, which you can view using www.anecresults.com and view it real time. And showing what we have done is that we have increased the width of this portal such that 2 million people can view this portal at the same time without any glitches, without its clogging. So, and I suspect that we won't have up to 2 million, but we made provision for the portal to accommodate 2 million viewers real time.
It's interesting. I'm viewing it presently. From the last time that I was asking you, the total number of submitted results have gone to 1,230. But you perhaps did not answer my the perspective of which I was talking about. The Z-pad that was introduced was meant to be used in the afternoon, when those officials are supposed to have taken that result when it landed. By afternoon or by 4 p.m., we should have had almost all results in this portal. But we have just one. It's gone to 1,244. So several hours later, election, it's not there.
The Z-part was not deployed. The Z-part was not deployed in the conduct of the Edo governorship election. We did a trial run of the Z-part in the conduct of the Nasarawa State House of Assembly election 4 weeks ago. And the intent of the commission was to use the Z-part to complement and even supplement the smart card reader, because over time we are having challenges with the card reader which is malfunctioning. All computer-related products have shelf lives. Your handset, your computer has a shelf life maximum of 4 years. We have used the smart card reader now for 5 years. And the permanent voter card was intended to be used for 10 years, after which we will now migrate to the national identity card that would have been issued by the National Identity Card Management Commission. Unfortunately, the registration being conducted by NIMISI has not gained the kind of traction to generate the database that ANEC has. And in addition to that, these permanent voter cards have antennae embedded in them. And over time, because not all voters keep these permanent voter cards very well, the antennae embedded have broken, and therefore it makes it difficult for the smart card reader to read them timeously. So the Z part was intended to assist the smart card reader in capturing the facials, or rather in authenticating and verifying the facials. But when we did the trial run in Nasarawa State, we had some issues, and that delayed the conduct of the election, and it made voters restless, such that they did not observe in a lot of polling units social and physical distancing. So we deliberately said, okay, since we've not perfected the use of the Z-Pad, let us defy it, let us perfect it. And by the time we perfect it, we can deploy it in subsequent elections. So it's not as if we have jettisoned the Z-Pad. No, we need to perfect it. And it's policy in INEC that when you introduce new technology, you use a small election to test it so that you can manage whatever challenges that might arise from the pilot or from the test. And we cannot take the risk of doing extrapolating that test run to the Edo governorship election, especially given the fact that we are conducting the election within the context of COVID-19. And of course, as you very well know, in the lead up to the conduct of the election of today, there were several incidents of violence which even prompted the commission to threaten 4 weeks ago that it might postpone the election. But thank God, after so many engagements and through the goodwill of many stakeholders and their robust support, we've been able to conduct the election peacefully. And so the Z-Part is a technology for tomorrow. We have not jettisoned it. We only deferred it, and we'll see fine recourse to it until such a time when we revalidate our voter cards and also replace most of the smart card readers that have aged.
All right. Mr. Dazang, let me allow Idayat to weigh in on this. Idayat, are you impressed by INEC's outing today in terms of the Z-Part, for example? You heard the explanation of Mr. Dazang, and some IT experts have criticized the sophistication of that Z-Pad. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think when it comes to the Z-Pad, I'm in agreement with the fact that being a new technology which has not been trialed broadly, the last election was basically a state house of assembly election with such a small sample size. You don't bring it to such a contentious elections like this Edo elections. But what is very important, and what I quite agree with you, is the result viewing portal. Now, result viewing portal, what basically INEC is doing is what is called a photo quick count. So you are putting the citizens form, the form 60E that we always had. You are putting it on a portal, and it's expected to be uploaded immediately after the elections. So voting has closed, counting has finished in several places as early as 2 up to 4 p.m. By 8:37, we should at least have 80–90% of those photos or those scanned copy uploaded. It is immediate, and it is only in such instance it will be very useful that before collation, which is already ongoing, what collation will be ongoing, or even if they merge it, all these figures are already available in the public domain, and it makes it very impossible for any kind of interference or attempt to actually change the vote. Now, going further again, the result collation, which I have called it a photo quick count, has not even come with what we expected. A technology where, for instance, it is tabulating and giving us those figures almost simultaneously and open to the public domain. For you to download and start looking through all this, it's more going to be like an academic exercise that can take us up to 1 week. But be that as it may, it's a confidence building morale. And in the next 1 week, or even immediate, because I was thinking as we are seated here, that if we deploy, if we had that enough sample size, even with the sample size that is present now, we deploy people, we can do the calculation and have an idea with few margin of error of what the results should actually look like by tomorrow.
Maybe Dayat, you are one of a friend of mine who said INEC is resorting to a diskette technology at this age where we are having hard drives and of terabyte size. Because of, if you look at it, Mr. Dazang, and you rightly mentioned what I was asking Mr. Dazang earlier, that those results should have been, almost all the 2,627 results that we're expecting should have been in the portal latest by 5 p.m. because they are polling unit result, not RA report result, nor local government area result. Isn't it? Is it a Diskette kind of technology, diet? Do you agree with that criticism?
It is, actually. No, it is. This is something that we have projected as early as 2015 to do. But it is just the time factor, what it takes to put all the pictures together and start calculating. So it's a deterrence kind of, it's a deterrence measure which has been used in several parts of the world, particularly in Eastern Europe. So it's actually for observers. But be that as it may, it's something that makes us happy that it's actually being started. But the Z-pad is somewhere that we have to go. And to chip in, again, it has to do with logistics management, which INEC did not manage properly again in this election. It's a recurrent trend that each election will be talking about logistics. So Mr. Dazang is talking about protest being the only reason why there was late commencement. But the failure of vehicles to arrive timely impacted on the elections. And when you look at why we could not even implement the social distancing rule, that was partly responsible because by the time the INEC staff were reaching the polling unit, time was largely closed. This is an election that by 6, 7 o'clock, we should have been at the polling station, marking where people should sit, having all those protocols already laid out, such that as voters are coming, they are just keying right into it, not voters waiting for INEC, ad hoc, and officials actually to arrive at the polling unit.
Prof, we have about, I'm being told we need to go on a break, but we have about a minute before that break. What's your take? I want you to weigh in on this. Maybe you can rescue your friend, Mr. Dazang, in this Diskette technology criticism against INEC on the Z-pad.
Not to rescue. I can only excuse him because he's not in the field. I think we're even expecting you to help us with field results as to why some of them, is there logistics in terms of bringing them where they are if they have no technology at all that will enable that to happen? Are there in the remote areas where they are not able to come out and do the needful? We needed field report to be able to make intelligent commentary on this. But be that as it may, the confidence building of the exercise itself is very important. Because the moment you raise that issue, the excellent verdict we gave earlier, we had a question mark on it immediately, because like I observed earlier, elections have finished peacefully, orderly, safely, but now, from now, this is when it happens. So why would something in some areas, election finish by 2, by 4, this has not happened, they've not been uploaded. And this is what we thought would be the greatest confidence building measure that INET is bringing into this election. So it's really something to worry about.
So let's take a breather. But when we come back, Professor Obasi had tried to rescue his friend, Mr. Dazang, just a bit. But when we come back, there are still more issues to look at as we keep our fingers crossed as results are trickling in. If I refresh this now, 1,264 results, 1,297 now of the 2,627 on the INEC election result portal. We come back and look at what you need to expect in the outcome of this election, as the results are going to start being collected at the central point at the INEC headquarters. We'll be there on the ground for you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The voters are enthusiastic to come out and vote. And that is because we have told them that all security arrangement is going to protect lives and property. They are so enthusiastic. And that is what is all about democracy. It should be inclusive. It should be free. It should be fair. And it should be acceptable at the end of the day. So what we have seen is policemen dominating but not intimidating. Security agencies all over the places, they are not intimidating, but they are giving assurance and reassurance. And all that we have told them at this particular place is to use their face masks for their safety. Because in this COVID era, we are not only talking of credible free fair, we are also talking about safe election. Safety is key. So for me, I am still going round. We will be able to say that we are putting on our best. But you know, everybody has his own role to play. The security agencies have their roles to play. The politicians, even the press, have their own roles to play. For now, we will continue to go around to ensure that we put the wrong things right. We have crossed all the T's, we have dotted all the I's. So we are expecting a credible election at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. We still have our panel discussing some of these issues for us. Professor Isaac Obasa, before I come to the studio here in Benin City, I was asking Mr. Omar earlier on that this is a period where a lot of things happen. This is the period where professional politicians now get down to work, and those ones who are notorious for rigging, this is the time where they do their job. What do you think could be happening right now, and what, from your experience, not only theory now, practical-wise, what do you think we should be expecting and the security agencies should be doing?
Let me put it this way. I don't want to be overtly optimistic. If the improved behavioral thing we have today, the pattern we saw, is anything to go by. If the INEC, the security agencies tried to build our confidence in the process, if the visiting governors, I don't want to mention anyone, but I believe all of them should be treated equally. If they are also checkmate, if the politicians who create the problems, you know, when INEC divides a means, they will divide a counter means to try to subvert that. If all the ifs I've mentioned are able to behave as we had it earlier today, I think we may expect a decent, a more respectable and acceptable, credible result. Let me say it this way. When President Jonathan was in power, he allowed the election in Edo to be held in a free and fair atmosphere. Despite all the war mongering, all the, you know, the high-tune rhetorics that we witnessed that time, everything went well. And Comrade Oshemele acknowledged that indeed the president did not influence. If by the promise of our current president, President Muhammad Buhari, is not going to interfere, and everybody takes a cue, I suggest that this night, if the politicians are well marked and not allowed, or their proxies checked, we will have less. We'll have less of anything that we reduce the credibility of the results. Let me be optimistic that based on what has happened so far, we are more likely to have perhaps an acceptable result than before.
Mr. Bassi, security-wise, at this period, you hear what happens. What are your men doing right now?
You know, after the elections at the polling units, we collapsed our men to go to the ward collection centers, where they provide security at the ward collection centers. Thereafter, they will move to the local government collection centers with all INEC staff and their materials. So at every stage, in the process of this election, our policemen and our men are there to protect the results and the material and the staff themselves of INEC.
I understand that there are trackers on some of these vehicles. Are you aware?
Yes.
Are those still monitored? Because I understand that it is a dashboard.
There's a central unit of all these agencies that sits and monitor these elections at the CP's office.
Because what I understand and what I'm being told is that there is a dashboard and every major helix that is used in transporting the materials, you can track them digitally.
Yes.
Is it still in?
Yes.
Did all of the local government areas have, or the racks have all of these trackers?
Yes, provided by the police, yes.
And what is the kind of escort that they get? Your men also are with them?
Yes. All the sister agencies are with them, not just one agency.
In the riverine area, it does look like we are not getting as much information from Akoko Edo area and some other riverine area in Edo State. What could have been responsible for that? Those are some of the border communities.
Communities, yes. Because of, some of them you have to go by canoe, or boats, engine boats. They transporting the materials to the polling unit first. Then throughout the elections, that's some of them. Maybe that's a delay because of transporting materials to those centers. Then bringing them back also, and the rains. You know that this evening there was
rain
heavily.
Oh, did it rain across the state,
yes.
or just in some
rain
part?
Across the state?
Okay.
So those materials cannot come under the rains.
I mean, you think that the collation might last till Sunday afternoon or something, or because from experience, what do you think we should be expecting?
By tomorrow, I think the elections from the results from all the local governments.
We might have to keep vigil. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
We'll keep vigil today.
Our men are still on the.
My colleagues are already on the ground.
Yes.
Some of them are still on the field, monitoring how these things are.
We are not sleeping throughout this night.
Wow, it's a vigil.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Mr. Dazang will be keeping vigil. Is there any information you are getting, Mr. Dazang? How many local government results have come in? Do you have any idea?
Well, I can't give you the latest information because I've been here waiting for you. I left the situation room about 2 hours ago, so I have to go back to the situation room and update myself. It is when I do that that I can effectively respond to why not all the results have been uploaded. But as I am here, I'm out of the situation room until I link up by Zoom. It is then that I will be in a position to update you. So you pardon me for that. And I didn't need to be salvaged, really, because if the period you kept us waiting, if I knew I would have returned to the situation room, and then I would have given you, up-to-date information. So next time you call me, I will have updated information and I'll bring you up to speed.
Okay, so definitely, because it does look like something is rapidly happening. Maybe some of your guys are actually watching right now, and in the last few, it's over 200 results that are being uploaded. It's gone to 1,341 now out of 2,627 results so far. But give us an understanding, Mr. Dazang, of the issue with this result collation. A lot of people have wondered, must we, because you see the chief returning officer manually filling the result one after the other. That sometimes takes about an hour. When all the results are coming, that tired a lot of people, and people are wondering, can't we do any better? For a lot of people who are watching and are expecting that will play out again, please educate us. What happens when we have to, the chief
professor, we can do a lot of things to fast.
We'll have to fill it manually, one after the other.
Yes, we can do a lot of things to fast track the process. But the laws have to be changed to allow us to fast track the process. The law says you must enter the outcome of the results at the polling unit manually. you must enter the outcome of the collation at the registration area manually. And you must enter the result of the collation at the local government level manually, up to the state in a governorship election, and then up to the federal collation or presidential collation center in respect of a presidential election. So the laws need to be changed to allow INEC to bring in, to further deepen the technology it has put in place. And I can assure you that INEC is up to the task. Why do I say that? INEC has in-house the resources to improve on the technologies we are using. And let me also assure you that, in fact, the technologies that we have used and have added value and transparency to the electoral process were designed and invented by INEC staff. The smart card reader was an innovation designed and cultivated by INEC staff. The same thing with the permanent voter card. And the same thing with the
Mr. Dazan, just a moment. Apologies to cut in. Just a moment.
We are using now.
Sorry, Mr. Dazan, just a moment. I need to get the closing thoughts of Professor Obasi and Mr. Hassan tonight. We're due for break in 2 minutes, but let me allow Prof and Idayat to give us their closing moment in 1 minute apiece. Let me begin with the lady. Idayat, your closing thoughts on the program tonight.
I think so far so good. We are positive, but if the security agencies continue to be non-partisan during this critical moment, they do not intervene and they ensure that they implement the law such that any miscreant, any thugs that actually come to try to disrupt that process is arrested, we will coast to victory and we will all be very happy we are a part of this process.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hassan. Prof, your final thought.
It can be better said. It can be better said. That's exactly what it is. Building on what we have had during the day, if all those who are supposed to do their work, do the needful, do it, and the political party agents are active and alive to maintain their whatever they have gotten in the day, I think Edo will be a model for the future if all the imperfections are corrected.
I must sincerely thank both of you. Ms. Idayat Hassan, the country director of CDD, the executive director of CDD, and Professor Isaac Obasi, professor of public administration. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll take a break, but when we come back, Mr. Dazang, apologies, I will detain you further for more minutes because we need to take a break, and we'll look critically into the issue of the security of this election and what we need to expect. I will bring in Mr. Kabir Adam on the program tonight, as well as the ACG of NSCDC, Mr. Basi Basi. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.